Paul and Jess, just a little bit earlier this evening, more police released this body camera video. In it, you can see and hear police ask the now disgraced former state senator, "What are you doing in a motel room with an underage boy?"
Yeah, because you have a juvenile in your hotel room.
March 9th, 2017, more police at the motel room door of former state senator Ralph Shorty.
Come out before you get me worried. Show me your hands.
Okay. I'm sorry, guys. You're kind of freaking me out.
Yeah, that's what we do. He's 17.
Shorty tells the officers that he was just helping the teen as a mentor.
We were just hanging out and talking about life and stuff, and we couldn't graduate high school, and he was trying to help him get his life on the track.
He tells officers that the juvenile is the one who brought the marijuana to the motel.
Getting high with a young kid, whatever, is a bad idea.
But just weeks before this body camera video, Ralph Shorty told me this about doing drugs.
You should not be doing them in front of minor children.
Shorty admits to driving the teen to the motel and chatting with him under a fake name.
Yeah, you can shut the door. You're good. We're done.
Now, Shorty was not taken into custody. He was not arrested that night. But this motel incident led to a lengthy investigation, and ultimately, Shorty pleaded guilty to child sex trafficking.
One of the first witnesses at the Ghislaine Maxwell trial was an Epstein sex slave using the pseudonym Jane Doe. Jane had already given a sworn deposition to authorities. In it, she recounted the horrific acts of sexual violence she was forced to endure. She also talked about a time when Jeffrey Epstein brought her to meet Donald Trump at his Mar-a-Lago resort when she was only 14 years old. This is an excerpt from that deposition.
During one of my encounters with Jeffrey Epstein, he took me to Mar-a-Lago, where he introduced me to its owner, Donald Trump. I was 14 years old at the time. Jeffrey Epstein elbowed Mr. Trump playfully, asking him, referring to me, "This is a good one, right?" Mr. Trump smiled and nodded in agreement. They both chuckled, and I felt uncomfortable. I was too young at the time to understand why.
All right, now to stunning new developments in the trial of Ghislaine Maxwell, a woman identified only by the pseudonym Jane. She says disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein took her to meet Donald Trump in the 1990s when she was just 14.
Jane testified that both Ghislaine and Jeffrey Epstein sexually abused her when at the age of 14. We're now on cross-examination, and there are a couple of headlines here. One, during cross-examination, the defense attorney asked her whether she said Jeffrey Epstein introduced her to Donald Trump. She said yes.
Hey, what up, everybody? A little bit of story time. So I live in an incredibly liberal state, Washington, yeah. And every time I wear this hat out in public, you know, people always give me those looks of, ooh, it's a MAGA hat. Ooh, it's so bad. He hates everyone. But then they read it, and usually they have a pretty good laugh, you know, in support of it. Then again, you still do get those people that are offended by it, but, you know, imagine that in a blue state. Ha! You know, ooh, they have rights too. No, they don't. The victim does, but they shouldn't have any. So, pretty cool hat and make pedophiles afraid again. I love it. So, yeah, people always mistake it for a MAGA hat.
Riley began a crowdfunding campaign to launch a nonprofit aimed at catching online predators and deterring them from engaging in harmful acts against children.
But she was very descriptive of what was happening. And like I said, we're not here to cast judgment. We're not here to label people, and understand there's things that happen in our lives that cause us to make mistakes. But it's an 11-year-old girl talking about things that were done to her that shouldn't have been done.
Like I said, it's not even a sexual thing. I don't feel attracted. It's just this weird impulse. I don't know. I don't know. It's so weird. God, this is just a weird conversation. Developing, you know, in certain areas, and you know, What's wrong with me? Oh, God, I'm just a rotten sack of shit.
Oh, wait a minute. We have a big celebrity here tonight. And I'll tell you something. He's great, and he loves this state. Congressman Matt Gaetz. Where the hell is Matt Gaetz? Where is he? Hello, Matt.
Former Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz tried and failed to block the release of that much talked about and very explosive House ethics report. CBS News reviewed the report, which accuses Gaetz of having sex with a minor, paying for sex with multiple women, and doing illegal drugs. Allegations in that report that Gaetz denies. That report accuses Gaetz of making $90,000 in payments to 12 different women. The House ethics report goes on to claim those payments were likely connected to sexual activity and to drugs. The committee wrote it heard testimony that Gaetz had sex with a 17-year-old girl at a party in 2017. The report called her Victim A and said she recalled receiving $400 in cash that evening, which she understood to be a payment for sex. The report also said Gaetz appeared to have set up an email account from his office in the complex of the Capitol to buy marijuana. That report went on to conclude that Gaetz violated House rules that prohibit prostitution, statutory rape, illicit drug use, and obstruction of Congress, among other standards.
To provide further details on the parties Trump hosted, Gross found two former attendees who agreed to give details of what they saw going on. The first was a photographer who attended many parties, but requested that his name remain anonymous, for obvious reasons. Here's what he had to say.
Trump would take over suites on the corners of his hotel with views of Central Park and Grand Army Plaza. The attraction for the men was young girls assuming they'd get somewhere by joining the party. Of course, it never happened. Young models were attracted to the parties with a simple, time-tested pitch. You'll meet rich guys who will help you. It was networking, but on a weird, bizarre scale. The girls were as young as 15 and were in over their heads. They had no idea, and they ended up in situations. There were always dramas because the men threw money and drugs at them to keep them enticed. It's based on power and dominating girls who can't push back and can be discarded. There's always someone to pick them back up. Trump would go from room to room. I was there to party myself. It was guys with younger girls, sex, a lot of cocaine, top-shelf liquor, but no smoking. Trump didn't approve of cigarettes. Trump was in and out. He'd wander off with a couple girls. He was getting laid like crazy. Trump was at the heart of it. He loved the attention, and in private, he was a total fucking beast.
The second attendee Michael Gross spoke to was not only a frequent visitor at the Trump parties at the Plaza Hotel, but also helped to organize them by recruiting models. His name is Andy Lucchese. He was a friend of Donald Trump's in the 90s. And in Michael Gross's article that ended up being published by the Daily Beast, for some unknown reason, Andy Lucchese allowed Gross to attach his name to his quotes.
It's fair to say that I was a recruiter for the parties. As for the parties themselves, there was cocaine around. Donald Trump did not do cocaine. He was in control of himself. Girls? Well, of course. But did he have sex with his female party guests? So, he's a man with a woman. How old were they? A lot of girls, 14, look 24. That's as juicy as I can get. I never asked how old they were. I just partook. I did partake in activities that would be considered controversial today.
This guy's screaming, "We want Roy Moore." He's right. We need somebody in that Senate seat who will vote for our Make America Great Again agenda. So get out and vote for Roy Moore. Do it. Do it.
Kelly Harrison Thorpe says she was just 17 years old when she turned down an overture from Moore in 1982. Thorpe says she asked him, "Do you know how old I am?" He reportedly responded, "I go out with girls your age all the time." Those new accusations follow Beverly Young Nelson's emotional claim on Monday that Moore sexually assaulted her when she was 16 years old and he was 30. She says it happened when he gave her a ride home from her job. But the flood of accusations began 1 week ago. Lee Korfman tells the Washington Post she was only 14 when Moore, then 32, an assistant district attorney, sexually assaulted her back in 1979. Wendy Miller says she was 14 when Moore first approached her at the mall, and was 16 when Moore asked her out on dates. But she says they did not go out because her mother forbade it. Debbie Wesson Gibson says she was only 17 when Moore asked her out on several dates that, quote, did not progress beyond kissing.
Get out and vote for Roy Moore. Do it. Do it.
As of today, Tim Nolan is charged with 13 counts of human trafficking. 2 of those counts involve minors. He's charged with rape, prostitution, unlawful transaction with a minor, and tampering with a witness.
Good evening, everybody. The disgraced politician agreed to 20 years in prison for a list of sex crimes.
Local 12 broke this story last spring after a minor came forward and claimed that Nolan had coerced her into having sex for money. That led to a 30-count indictment that included charges of human trafficking, unlawful transaction with a minor, and prostitution.
Well, here's a guy named Tim Nolan. Tim Nolan. He's a Tea Party leader and a good Christian, and the former Trump campaign chair in Campbell County, Kentucky, which is right across the Ohio River from Cincinnati. He has just been sentenced to 20 years in prison for human trafficking. According to Cincinnati.com, this piece of shit, he's a former judge, a Christian, a Republican, a Tea Party leader, and a Trump campaign chair. He pleaded guilty of using drugs and threats of arrest to force women and girls under the age of 18 into sex acts.
I pledge for underserved youth.
A former high-ranking Maryland official for then-Governor Larry Hogan is facing sex solicitation charges following a sting operation. Former Deputy Secretary of State Luis Esteban Barunda was arrested last week after arranging to meet up with someone he believed was a 13-year-old girl. He was actually messaging with a special agent posing as the teen. News 4's Joseph Olmo has the story.
This is Luis Barunda, seen here just a few seats away from Governor Larry Hogan in a picture posted to his account on X, formerly known as Twitter. Now he's standing in front of a camera for a different reason, to take a booking photo. Barunda, who served as Maryland Deputy Secretary of State for 8 years, now accused of sending this doctored photo to who he thought was a 13-year-old girl. Investigators say he began chatting online with a special agent with the Fort Meade Army Criminal Investigation Office 2 weeks ago, thinking he was talking to the teen. Police say he told the agent he wanted to meet at a spot in Anne Arundel County last Wednesday. It was there where Barunda was met by police and taken into custody. Barunda already faces one charge of sexual solicitation of a minor, but Maryland State Police are investigating the possibility of there being even more victims. They are urging you to reach out if you've had any contact with him.
But with Tuesday results, I'm hoping that the rhinos in this chamber realize that the writing's on the wall, and they'll get behind the Freedom Caucus agenda and the agenda of the people of South Carolina.
But we did confirm earlier this week that on Monday morning, agents of the Department of Homeland Security's Homeland Security Investigations Unit, HSI, conducted a search warrant or executed a search warrant on May's West Columbia, South Carolina home. Now, they were accompanied by agents of the South Carolina State Law Enforcement Division. And as we reported exclusively, the focus of the investigation involves allegations regarding what are called now child sex abuse materials. I still call it child porn. To me, that still sounds sufficiently awful, but apparently the new en vogue term, child sex abuse materials, but whatever you want to call it, very bad stuff.
We have a developing story for you this morning. We are learning new details about an arrest of a U.S. congressional candidate. According to the Bossier Parish Sheriff's Office inmate page, deputies arrested this man, Ben Gibson, Wednesday for pornography involving a juvenile and fugitive charges.
A man ran for Congress in Louisiana this year. His name was Ben Gibson, and he actually lost. And it's turning out in hindsight that that was an even better thing than it seemed at the time. Now, bear in mind, one important fact about this candidate is that, according to Media Matters, he has endorsed the QAnon conspiracy theory multiple times on his Facebook campaign page and other social media accounts. The QAnon cult believes that there's an underground network of satanic pedophiles who are being covertly pursued by President Trump. And bear in mind, that underground network of satanic pedophiles includes every celebrity you don't like and all Democratic leaders. We found another interesting thing about Ben Gibson, this person who believes that there's this cult of pedophiles that need to be rooted out at all costs. He was booked this week on 4 counts of pornography, including juveniles under the age of 13.
A former Hays County GOP leader is in jail accused of sexually assaulting a child. Bo Dresner was the precinct chair and sergeant at arms for the Hays County Republican Party. He was arrested Wednesday, and Child Protective Services removed 4 kids from his care. It's not clear how young the alleged victim is, but according to an affidavit, she was younger than 14. Dresner is held on a $250,000 bond.
Well, Mr. Dresner was just sentenced to more than 400 years in jail for, among other things, sexually assaulting, raping kids. You know, Republicans have been telling us for several years now that we've got to root out the groomers, right? The groomers that are teachers, the groomers in the LGBTQ community, the groomers in the drag community, the groomers on the left. We have heard nothing but groomer talk from Republican. And the reason is they know damn well who the groomers are. The groomers are coming from the Republican Party. Let me read you this. According to mysanantonio.com, Dresner got a stacked sentence that totaled 410 years, according to a news release. Dresner was given 75 years each for 4 counts of sexual abuse of a child, and Judge Gary Steele of the 274th District Court added sentences of 10 to 20 years for each of the 61 counts of child pornography with intent to promote. They also, by the way, caught him with a one-way ticket to Armenia, which does not have extradition back to the United States.
Well, we start tonight with our big story. A Republican candidate for the Maricopa County Community College Governing Board is suspending his campaign after reports of sexual indecency. Documents show that Randy Kaufman was arrested in Surprise several weeks ago.
Team 12's Colleen Sikora is looking into what police say happened and what's next for the race.
First, we do want to warn you that some of the content in this story is graphic and may disturb some viewers, as a police report details how a Maricopa Community College's police officer found Kaufman in his truck and arrested him on sexual indecency a couple weeks ago. It's campaign signs still up in the West Valley that match the name on a police report dated Tuesday, October 4th, where a police officer from Maricopa Community College's police department details how he found Randy Kaufman committing a lewd act in his truck. The truck was parked at Rio Salado College's Lifelong Learning Center. That center in Surprise next door to a preschool and childcare center. The police report detailing a conversation between the officer and Kaufman, the officer asking, "Why would you do that here?" Kaufman replying, "I'm just really stressed out. I have a lot of things going on." The police report says that the case has been referred over to the Maricopa County Attorney's Office for a charging decision. And 12 News has learned that that could be a felony because of how close police say Kaufman was to that childcare center.
Scott Hounsel was the executive director of the Republican Party of Los Angeles County. Okay. And he's quite aggrieved by some of the sex scandals happening with the Democrats recently. And he's a Republican, that makes sense. And he wants to make fun of them. I get that. Who doesn't want to make fun of Wiener? I understand. So now we go to a news report about Scott Hounsel. Can you see which way this is going? Quote, on Friday, the former executive director of the Republican Party of Los Angeles County was arrested for allegedly sending sexual explicit material to a 16-year-old over social media. Not only was he sexting, it was with a minor and criminal. Well played, well played. Quote, authorities came to his house with a warrant following an investigation by the LAPD's Internet Crimes Against Children unit. He was charged with a misdemeanor and later released on $40,000 bail. Hey, if you're sexting a 16-year-old and you're a politician, don't go on Twitter and be like, look at the wiener, look at my wiener, get it? He's sexting. What a weirdo, man. Those girls are above age. No, you gotta do it with underage girls. Hey.
Jane Doe has received numerous threats today, as have all the Trump accusers that I have represented. She is living in fear. She has decided that she is too afraid to show her face. She's been here all day, ready to do it, but unfortunately, she's in terrible fear.
Katie gives a vivid and horrifying description in her sworn affidavit of the 4 encounters she had with Donald Trump. None of Katie's allegations have ever been debunked, nor has she ever retracted any of her statements. The only reason that she didn't follow through with her lawsuit was because of the barrage of death threats that she faced by Trump supporters. In 2016, Katie gave an interview to the British tabloid, the Daily Mail. She gave graphic details of her encounters that are all confirmed in her affidavit. The Daily Mail also confirmed her story with a witness to all the encounters, Tiffany Doe, an Epstein recruiter and coach who witnessed all of the encounters. We learned from Katie and Tiffany's testimony that Jeffrey Epstein provided coaches for his clients with girls like Katie who were virgins and didn't know how to pleasure a man. The coach would sit in on the session and guide the victim according to the client's instructions. For normal-minded people, it is impossible to process this kind of depravity. But both the victim and her witness have sworn in an affidavit to the validity of these encounters, under the threat of perjury for making a false statement.
During our first encounter, Mr. Trump didn't really talk to me at all. He spoke at me, but he was talking to Tiffany more, telling her what he wanted me to do. I thought he felt like he was too good to even speak to me. Tiffany told me what I needed to do. Anything he did say to me wasn't that great. Like, you need some work. I was 13. I didn't know what I was doing. Mr. Trump said very little to me during that first encounter other than I reminded him of his daughter. After I finished the sex act, he made a comment that I wasn't great before putting on his pants.
Commissioner from Lake Alfred in Polk County is charged with possession of child pornography. 90-year-old Charlie Lake has been involved in local politics for more than a decade.
10 Tampa Bay's Eric Glasser is live in Lake Alfred tonight, where everyone from colleagues to neighbors say they are in absolute shock over this, Eric.
Yeah, Courtney, shock, disappointment, disgust. No shortage of adjectives tonight here in Lake Alfred, where colleagues and neighbors are now beginning to learn the details of the allegations being made against longtime commissioner and one-time mayor Charlie Lake.
I am finding probable cause on each of the counts.
At his first appearance in Polk County Court, Lake Alfred City Commissioner Charlie Lake stood silent. The 90-year-old facing multiple charges of possession of child pornography.
Tonight, a now former Lake Alfred City Commissioner faces almost 3,000 additional counts of child pornography. 90-year-old Charles Lake was first arrested in mid-April on 300 counts. Polk County deputies tell us that a subsequent search of his storage devices revealed more than 2,000 videos and images depicting the sexual abuse of children between the ages of 6 months and 12 years old.
The College Republican National Committee says that Jonathan Hernandez was a national board member from Oklahoma. In a statement today, they say, "I'm disgusted to hear about the deplorable conduct alleged in the arrest of Jonathan Hernandez," going on to call for changes to its bylaws making code of conduct mandatory. Hernandez was arrested Friday morning at his Northwest Oklahoma City apartment. He was booked into the Oklahoma County Jail and released over the weekend. I went to his apartment today but didn't get an answer. Court documents detail the interactions Hernandez had with the then 14-year-old victim, who is now 16, saying they met at church where Hernandez was a minister. And 2 weeks later, Hernandez invited the 14-year-old over to his dorm at Oklahoma Christian University, where the two allegedly watched porn in Hernandez's bed, which led to touching and oral sex. Many of the details too graphic to describe on TV. The university telling News 4, "Once notified of the allegation, our campus police immediately investigated and referred the case to OKC PD."
Less than 1 month since the state Republican Party held its election year convention, the party is facing a test of its party platform and code of conduct. This comes as Senator Ray Holmberg faces allegations that he sexually assaulted a man in 2010, on top of allegations last week that he was involved with Nicholas DeRozier, who is currently incarcerated and facing federal charges of child sex abuse. The Democratic NPL has called for the release of the text messages Holmberg exchanged with DeRozier while he was incarcerated.
Tonight, former North Dakota Senator Ray Holmberg, who is accused of traveling abroad with plans to sexually abuse a child, violated the conditions of his release, according to a filing in the U.S. District Court. According to filings, Holmberg went on the internet multiple times without approval. The filing also alleges he drank alcohol in May and left his home without approval, and would also look at Romantics, an adult novelty store. As reported, Holmberg agreed to plead guilty to traveling abroad over a number of years to have sex with minors. Holmberg's plea hearing is scheduled in U.S. District Court this Thursday.
So these rooms, presumably there were women in these rooms?
Oh yeah, a lot of women.
Mm-hmm. How were they?
All over the room.
How were they dressed, Uncle Luke?
Half naked.
Half naked.
Half naked and some naked.
Half naked and some naked.
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
We had a house party. They up in there naked. All the women were enjoying themselves like they do. You know, but the thing, let me tell you, the thing is when you're around, I've been around a lot of models and a lot of these pageant women, because that's what mostly it was. It was mostly pageant women. And a lot of these women ain't of age. So when you got a whole bunch of these women running around, whether they of age or not, you know, there's a lot of things going on. You just, you know, some women look too young. So you keep it moving.
I see.
You know, so it wasn't nobody beating no women or nobody taking advantage of no women. I mean, they were all enjoying themselves. That's what they were there for. But were they old enough to be enjoying themselves? I don't know.
Was there sex?
Of course there was.
I guess that's a stupid question now to ask. Okay, so I think I got you now. You're saying that all this was going on and you weren't clear as to whether these were adults.
I wasn't clear whether or not they were adults, and I wasn't clear whether or not, you know, whether I wanted to be in that kind of environment. Okay, he said, look, I got all these women. I got these women from the pageant. They're going to be there. So we went. It was like, hey, man, I got a pageant down here. I'm hosting these women at the house. Okay, up in Palm Beach. They send some cars to pick us up. We get in the cars. We drive up there. Me, Mike, Eddie Murphy, we all in our own individual cars. Car service drove us up there. We got there. He showed us around the house. There wasn't no DJ. It was more of, hey, get in where you fit in. Whatever room you're going to go in, you go into that room.
So you say no DJ. There was no music? Or the music was piped in?
No, there wasn't no music.
No music.
That was the interesting part about it. There wasn't no music.
So women just naked in rooms with no music?
Hey, people walking around. It wasn't, listen, it wasn't nothing wrong with that. I was happy to be at that party, but then at the end of the day, when I started looking at some of these girls' faces, I was like, man, these girls don't look like they're old enough. I didn't ask nobody their age. And then all the other stuff going on, you know, it was like, okay, I can't be up here. I got to go.
Granbury City Council candidate has been involved with quickly took action to distance themselves from him after his arrest on child pornography charges. 44-year-old Bradley J. Benson was on the ballot in today's city council election, but his time with the Granbury Volunteer Fire Department and his involvement in the Hood County Republican Party appear to be over. Fox 4's Rebecca Butcher has more tonight. Rebecca.
Yeah, Bradley Benson is charged with being in possession of child pornography. He placed second in today's elections results with 32% of the vote. Bradley Benson, a candidate in Tuesday's Granbury City Council election, was arrested Monday morning on 2 felony counts of possession of child pornography. The Hood County District Attorney's Office says the Child Exploitation Unit executed a search warrant and raided Benson's Granbury home. Multiple agencies assisted in the search for evidence and arrest, but the DA's office said little else, citing an active investigation.
At the Capitol, Republicans derailing a motion to expel Prescott Representative David Stringer. Members were set to vote on Democrat Reginald Boulding's motion. The GOP then stepping in, calling for Stringer to be investigated by the Ethics Committee first. On Friday, the Phoenix New-Times reported on decades-old charges against Stringer for child porn and other sex crimes in Maryland. A blog post defending Stringer claims the charges were dropped due to lack of evidence. Stringer already under fire for making racist comments.
We have breaking news out of Phoenix right now. Embattled Arizona State Representative David Stringer has resigned. Stringer faced expulsion over racist comments and sex-related charges from the 90s. House Speaker Rusty Bowers released a statement this afternoon saying he had accepted Stringer's resignation. 2 ethics complaints had been filed against the Republican representative who refused to cooperate with the ethics investigation against him.
A member of the Bangor School Committee appeared in court today to face charges of child pornography. John Hyatt was arrested yesterday afternoon. Hyatt is also the Penobscot County Treasurer. News Center Maine's Hannah Yoshivi has details from his bail hearing that wrapped up late this afternoon.
Today was not John Hyatt's first day facing criminal charges. Back in May, he was arrested by Bangor police investigators, charged on 5 counts: aggravated criminal invasion of computer privacy, stalking, theft by unauthorized taking, and 2 counts of harassment. Yesterday, arrested for child pornography found on his phone. Hyatt's bail was set at $1,000 with several conditions to include not being allowed in schools, on playgrounds, or any place where minors might be, and not having access to the internet.
I mean, some of these foreign girls, you know, Mr. Trump, in my country, we say hello with vagina. And
Well, you could also say, as the owner of the pageant, it's your obligation to do that.
So you have done that. Now,
I'll tell you the funniest is that I'll go backstage before a show.
Yes.
And everyone's getting dressed and ready and everything else. And, you know, no men are anywhere. And I'm allowed to go in because I'm the owner of the pageant, and therefore I'm inspecting it. You know, I'm inspecting. I want to make sure that
You're like
everything
a doctor.
is good.
You're there.
Yeah, the dress. Is everyone okay? You know, they're standing there with no clothes. Is everybody okay? And you see these incredible-looking women. And so I sort of get away with things like that.
He just came strolling right in. There was no time to put on a robe. Some girls were topless. Other girls were naked.
The time that he walked through the dressing rooms was really shocking. We were all naked. He came backstage and was looking me over like I was just a piece of meat. No one dreams of being ogled when you're a little girl wanting to wear a crown.
It was certainly the most inappropriate time to meet us all for the first time. The youngest girl was 15, and I was the eldest at 19.
The city county councilor charged with child molestation goes before a judge for the first time. And hours later, a major setback in his quest to keep his seat on the council. Good evening to you. I'm Erica Fly. Jeff Miller has indicated he has no plans to step down during the criminal proceedings. And just minutes ago, a committee of his colleagues limited his power and responsibility. Our TV6 political reporter Katie Hines is live at the city county building with the latest.
Erica, the council president and minority leader just voted in the last half hour to remove Jeff Miller from the 3 committees that he serves on, a move that is aimed at limiting what he is able to accomplish on council.
Behind bars tonight facing child porn charges. Charles Young is a longtime local Republican Party leader.
News 3's Brendan Ponton read through this case file tonight. So what else do we know now?
Well, a local official tells me tonight that he'll be praying for Young tonight. And Young faces 10 charges. He's accused of knowingly receiving child porn. And tonight, those who know him, as I mentioned, say they are sad to hear the news of his arrest. Charles Young is well known on the peninsula and in James City County for his local Republican Party leadership. But tonight, the 69-year-old is behind bars. Young faces 10 charges. He's accused of knowingly receiving child porn involving minor boys.
Former legislative candidate Joel Koskin is headed to prison. The former South Dakota legislative candidate was walked out of the courtroom in handcuffs after the judge sentenced him to 10 years in prison on sex charges. According to earlier court documents, the victim in the case was a child. Today's hearing came after a judge rejected a plea agreement in the case.
Cranston City Councilman Matthew Riley was officially indicted this morning for allegedly assaulting a 12-year-old girl in May of last year. The 42-year-old has been charged with 2 counts of second-degree child molestation, enticement of a minor, and simple assault.
We're following breaking news. A former state senator pleaded guilty to possessing child pornography. Investigators found lewd images of children on Mike Fulmer's cell phone. He represented Lebanon County in the state Senate. He resigned after the charges were announced.